Welcome to the Cashflow Project podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cashflow Project podcast. I'm your host, Steve Fieros of Tri-City Equity Group. Today, excited, we've got Grant Shipman on the show. So I'm excited to talk to Grant because he's got a unique investment strategy and something that we don't often hear about. So Grant's the leading expert in co-living property management and investment. He's got over 20 years of experience. Grant founded LivingSmith. He's achieved a 97% lifetime occupancy rate, guys. And he's pioneered the first ever co-living course. His company offers comprehensive services from DIY guides to full service property management. He's going to share his insights on the show with us today on the co-living industry, smart investment strategies, and how co-living can even address housing and climate crisis, something that was on the top of a lot of news articles. And we see that pretty frequently here in Hawaii. But Grant, welcome to the show. Excited to have you on.
Yeah, this is fantastic, Steve. There's only so many shows out there that really get handholds on things for the listeners. They don't just add fluff. It's like, this is nutrient dense. So anyway, thanks for having the show. Thanks for having me on. It's an honor.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you taking your time out of your day and hopping on with us and kind of sharing with the listeners. So, well, for those of our listening audience that may not be familiar with you, kind of the concept and really who you are and kind of working in the space, give us a little bit of your backstory. How'd you get started in the business? What led you to where you are today with LivingSmith?
Yeah, my backstory is kind of this fantastic accident. I was married early because I always wanted to have I called it my dream babe, magical journey. I wanted to be a dad. I wanted all these things. But anyway, I came home after 9 months of marriage and my wife had disappeared. And it was really unusual. Actually, there's still a lot more questions, maybe mental illness, but I really worked and hung on to hopefully that marriage would heal. And so I did kind of this unexpected thing and I moved in with hippies. And I mean that in a fantastic way. These people who have been strangers sharing a house together for decades. This got my introduction to the intentional living community. These people aren't living together because they can't afford to do elsewise because of anything. Like, this is what their preferred way to live together. And I learned there this powerful thing I call household. Some of us have grown up in healthy households, unhealthy households, or just non-existent households. But I learned this here and I thought, oh my gosh, like this was cool. And that was over 20 years ago. And so I made this mistake that probably you've made too, Steve, have you made the mistake of reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Yeah, for sure.
I was like,
that's the purple Bible. It's the real estate Bible.
I was like, I'm living in the intentional living community, the OGs of strangers sharing houses. And then I think, oh my gosh, like I still wanted to get that dream babe magical journey. I want to get married. I wanted to come home and say, where's my beautiful bride? And have my kids kind of run around. And that's what I wanted. And then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I thought, oh, I don't just want the finances to support a family like that. I want the financial freedom. I want the schedule. I want to have free time you were just talking before the show about how y'all went on to Japan, to Thailand. Like, that's what I wanted. I wanted to do that. And so I was like, okay, real estate, that's how to do it. That's how to do it. And it's I got my financial freedom number. I thought, okay, if I work really hard and everything goes right, and I do single family and small multifamily, right? I wasn't as confident enough for the big multifamily when I was starting out. But I thought if I do everything right, nothing goes wrong, I'll have financial freedom in 10 years. And that was a tough pill to swallow. Anyway, what I found out was I went to check out, and keep in mind, I'm renting a room. I'm in the intentional living community. I don't have any savings. I'm delivering Domino's in a shitty Prius. But I did what all of the books said. I found a realtor, a lender that laughed at me. He's like, you never qualify for anything. It's like, awesome. And I went to check out this house. And what was surprising to me when I got there was there was another house on the same lot behind that house. It wasn't in the list. And I thought, oh, okay, so how would I rent this out? And so I just did some dummy ads on Craigslist at that time. That was the big deal. And so I did dummy ads I could rent out both houses on one lease. I could rent out each house on a separate lease, or I thought, oh, I guess you could do rent by the room. I'll do that. Anyway, I got like 10x the demand for these rent by the room. And I thought that I know how to do this. Like this is what I've been living for years. And all the real estate mentors I had, they said, Grant, you think you're going to make a lot of money, but rent by the room, it's decades old. It's going to be stressful. You're going to have high turnover, high tenant conflict, property damage. It's not going to be good. But like, right, like the little epiphany angel had this baby in my brain that was like, they don't know that I lived with the hippies. Like they had it worked out. And so I kind of got into an accident. And then 15 months later, not 10 years later, 15 months later, I had my financial freedom number. 6 months later, I met my dream girl. We got married. We got the two beautiful kids now that break everything of mine possible because they're at that age. And I didn't know it at the time. I was just trying to get my financial freedom. But in co-living is this new powerful trend that most real estate professionals they've heard about it. They don't really quite know what it is. And it's been brewing. It's kind of that last part of the share economy that's been brewing since 2010. My renters are college professors, HVAC technicians, a civil engineer. Like these are not transitional housing. This is a new trend. People want to live together. And I thankfully, I just combined the best real estate investing practices with the intentional living community principles, how to live together. And man, it was way better than 10 years. I thought I was having kids old enough in life, right? But it's one of those fantastic accidents along with the help of rich dad, poor dad messing up my plans. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. That's kind of beauty from ashes way to kind of turn around what started off as a pretty challenging situation. That's an amazing story, actually. I have to ask, was your wife a hippie? Did you find her?
She would claim hippie because she's from Boulder, but she's like the new school hippies, like the hippies I lived with. They were the real hippies. Yeah. So, but yeah, she totally claimed hippie. I don't think I can claim hippie. I can claim that I really appreciate that, but I'm just a typical Joe. I wear a collared shirt and look like everybody else.
I was gonna say you're a pretty clean cut guy. So yeah, I wasn't. Well, no, that's cool though. And there's some things that I kind of would like to dive in there a little bit of what you just shared. What an awesome way though. That's a mindset thing for sure. The way that you were able to kind of take that situation and kind of see it for what it was. It wasn't for some people that's, hey, I'm in the bottom of the barrel here in terms of living situation and just kind of financial situation. But it really took what for a lot of people is a devastating life event and saw it for what it was, saw it for, hey, this is a season. I can learn from it and kind of pick yourself up and not only move on from it, but wow, like really thrive from there. Boy, you really fast tracked your way to your own financial freedom coming out of that season through this unique strategy. So, and it is curious too, because as you were saying that, how you see this is kind of that last or our generation now, where you're starting to see more people that are actually intentionally wanting to live into community. I almost have to think like, gosh, is that a byproduct of where we are in the digital age where we just don't have that one-on-one connection? We don't have, let's say, how the hippies were before. You really have to seek that out because we're kind of forced into that. We're like this. We're having a great conversation, of course, but we're thousands of miles apart from each other. And so how many people kind of get locked into their own, hey, I'm in my room, the kids are they're gaming. And so they're not out in the streets riding their bicycles until 7, 8 o'clock at night, like how it was when I grew up. So it's a different time. And so, but that's almost just a testament to the longing that people have for community, and they're seeking it out now through their living situation. So I think that's actually a really, really interesting observation from kind of where we are, I guess, with society today. But so how did you, I kind of want to pick your brain a little bit about, okay, you were able to achieve your financial goals, your 10-year timeline, you fast tracked it to a year and a half or less, really. Were you able to immediately kind of recognize, all right, well, look, I can scale this up. I can provide this for other people. Like other people need to know, like how did you kind of go from there?
Yeah, it was one of those shocking things because I had in multifamily syndication is so common, but in single family, all right, one or two people teaming up, sure. But when a single family house, like one I'm about to close on, it's going to make minimum $7,200 or $7,200 a month. And then it's like, this enables partnering up to buy houses. So like I couldn't get a loan. I didn't know about creative finance, or nobody cared about it at that time. And but I had easily, right, this house was going to cash flow 3,000 after reserves. I easily found a friend with golden handcuffs that was like, I'll sign on that loan and have it as my primary residence. And she paid $16,000 and she was making over $1,500 a month cash flow. And that's when we kept reserves. And I even took out my management fee. And we were all, it's like my investors just become raving fans. People do my online training. They're like, hey, can we just JV? Could we just team up together? I'm like, that's a great honor. I would love it. But I'm committed to my previous investors, and we were just buying more properties. So at first I was so shocked and all of this. I just thought, okay, let's keep buying houses. Let's keep doing this. Then I realized I'm a little bit of a history nerd. And so I did some digging, and so a shift happened in how people live that's never happened in America before. This happened in 2003, that more people were living alone than any other group of people. It became the number one demand in residential lease. Mm-hmm. So when people point to the housing shortage, they often point to 2007, 8, when house building dropped by 60%. But when in 2003, suddenly places like a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom apartment, a house would have 2, 3, 4 people living in it. And for the first time ever, now there's just one person living in tons of those. Like, that creates a massive housing shortage. So like I started researching. I was like, oh, this is so interesting. I saw like institutional money, like the big investors in 2012, they started dumping money into co-living, and a lot of us didn't know what it was. But it basically, for me, it comes down to like after this whole journey, that I look at it like most people want to live with others if the pros outweigh the cons. And that is without a doubt, I say household is the forgotten social need that we all have. And so with what we do with property management, we call ours household-led property management, because you're managing a household of people, not just a one lease or a single family house. But now our battle cry is like households for the householdless. And it's everything from people who make a lot of money, because, right, you get to know that as a property manager, to people who they were homeless the last 2 years, living with their cats in a car. And nobody actually knows, because everybody can afford $700 to $800 a month rent, right? In a nice house, in a nice neighborhood. If you're reasonable and responsible, you fit in, and you see these multi-generational people in very different places. And that's why I think our average tenancy is over 2 years. Like, people find a home, it becomes a cherished home. They don't want to leave. They fall in love with the people there. Anyway, I get all excited about it. I get real passionate about it. But yeah, it just kind of happened by accident, and now it's just become my main passion.
Very cool. No, that's awesome. And even as you're kind of sharing that, I'm even thinking, gosh, with a 2-year average length of stay, so you're going to have low turnover. But then I'm also thinking, just from a practical standpoint, like, gosh, that's just less wear and tear. And if they're only, let's say if you're renting just one room, well, you still have all of the other, for one, like, this is one of the benefits of, let's say, multifamily. It's like, okay, well, hey, if I've got 50 units in an apartment building and I've got 5 that go vacant, well, I still have 45 other residents that are pulling the ship. Like, they're still also paying. Right. So like it's safer, right, from that perspective. But then even also this from like the co-living kind of standpoint, same thing. Like, okay, well, hey, if I've got a 4 or 5 bedroom house, one goes vacant. Okay, well, hey, it's the same concept. It's just kind of on a smaller scale. But then too, like the potential damage that you might have, let's say, if I have a unit go vacant, tenants, anybody who's been a landlord, there's tenants in there that can really mess up your place. They're really kind of dragging their feet and kind of everything else when they leave, holes in the walls and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, gosh, it's even a great way to kind of mitigate potential risk with, well, hey, look, for one, you have accountability with the rest of the household for that one other resident, the one other person that's living, whoever's leaving. But then two, again, you're only going to the damage is likely going to be limited to, if they mess up something, to that one specific room, let's say, versus no, it's this family tore up the whole thing and damaged all the floors and the drywall and the appliances. And it's just, they wrecked the place. And now it's going to wipe out my cash flow for the next how many years, because it was a really heavy turn. So like I can see kind of multiple benefits. But not only that too, but I definitely get like the people component where it's just like, no, you're going to have residents that are in a much better kind of mental state. You're providing family, you're providing effectively community, friendship. So you can kind of look at that beyond. It's probably hard to quantify, but knowing that you can give that benefit to the residents, well, incredibly powerful. This is an awesome strategy.
See, I don't throw out the G word very often, but you get the genius word, just because I've never, like podcast or just conversation, I've never had somebody pick up on what you just said, is the property damage or the risk profile of a co-living house is so much lower because you have that accountability, like you said, in the house. Like now, so if you picture a house like this, one is there's not kids in this house. So what's the most wear and tear on my house? It's my kids. They're spilling stuff. They're doing all this stuff. They're being kids. And so one is, these are adults. Most of our houses are 7 to 11 bedroom houses. This is a normal house in a normal A-B level neighborhood. And we just turn the extra, that you keep your nice living room, and then you turn the extra like big rec room into 2 bedrooms, right? And the office into a bedroom. But these are really easy to find houses. But you have this setup. People are working. They're not often at home. Reasonable, responsible adults. They're at the gym. They're doing this. They're here. They're there. And so the house is well taken care of. They got 20 to 60 minutes of chores a week. So it's super freaking clean. People usually, even adults who love to like be rowdy and party, reasonable, responsible ones usually like their house to be a peaceful place. And so that's what they have. And if like a stinker moves in, right, somebody always slips through the cracks. Like you've got a number of other reasonable adults that find that person, boot that person out. And the most that they can do, like you said, is we're going to come in and we're going to find a damaged room. That's it. So we might put in some new flooring or something like that. And so we never have a whole trashed unit. Additionally, once a month, the property manager shows up to do a little house walkthrough to refill the toilet paper, the soap, just different things. She leaves some candies and a card for the resident. Like everybody loves it when the property manager shows up. And yeah, these houses mostly run themselves, but really, Steve, like this is all I talk about. Like you said, you love to talk shop. Like this is my shop. And I've never had anybody ever point out that, man, I bet the risk profile is smaller because of like damage on property. And they usually think the exact opposite. So that's wherever you got that from. That's some good. Yeah, that's awesome.
I think it's interesting that it's like, maybe because I probably lived portions of this, rented out rooms before. I've house hacked,
right?
But also own, and we kind of manage other assets, right? Especially larger assets. So I can't help but to see it with kind of all through that lens. Right? But no, it's a brilliant strategy. And like I said, you just have that human component as well. Like there's a quality of life component there. That's why you have the such low turnover. You have the 2-year average length of residency of stay, because they're happy. And if they're dissatisfied, they're going to be in and out. They're not going to stick around for that. So,
and this is something, is you said that y'all have some midterm, so what we have on all our properties we have a month-to-month renewing lease. People always ask for longer leases, but what we do, and I think we might come out with like a 12-month, a 36-month one. But what we do is with month-to-month renewing, because if somebody doesn't want to be there, we want them not be there. And we don't have the turnover issue. Like you mentioned, it's the multifamily benefits with the single family property. So if somebody gives a 30-day notice, we've got a wait list. It's easy for somebody to move in. And but our average tenancy is over 2 years. Like people don't want to leave, right? But people think, oh, I'm just going to be here for a 3-4 month, maybe a nursing contract or something like that, and then they're still there like 4 years later, because that's how life is. But so yeah, it's really great. And eventually these houses, they really start to run themselves. The property manager, if a toilet's broke, they're going to organize the repair of that. And they're going to stop by once a month for 20 minutes just to drop by candies and replace any of the common area things. But these properties mostly self-run. I should point out though, something is some people picture co-living and they think, oh yeah, I have a sober living house. That's co-living. And I should point out just terminology, because I also have sober living properties. It was something that kind of happened on accident. It was just a different investment class. And then the association that they're a part of started to fall through. So my property management was like, I think we could try this out. And so, but to say is rent by the room, this strategy that's been around for a long time. It's most of these transitional housing. So senior housing, student housing, sobriety housing, halfway housing. There's all of this stuff. This is, when I say co-living, I don't mean these things. These things are great. Transitional housing is super important. I very much believe in it, but it is known for high turnover. And because people don't want to live there longer than they have to. Their hope is to have the support and move back into mainstream, responsible, long-term society. And that's the new thing that co-living is. So sometimes what we do to differentiate it is we say, this is the gold standard version of co-living. So I don't want to gloss over the difficulties that people may run into if they jump into what they think is co-living, but it's actually like housing for the poor. It's like a boarding house rebranded. And that's still important. It's wonderful, but it's got to be a passion project. You got to love it. Where co-living, I hope you love it, but it's just going to make you a ton of money because your renters are getting way more for way less, and you're getting way more for way less. So yeah. Anyway, that's a good distinction. I don't want to confuse people out there, because those strategies have been around for a long time, and this strategy has been around since about 2010, 2011.
Gotcha. No, thank you for the point of clarification. I was going to say too that this probably also coincides, or is even more, I don't want to say normalized, even more so within the last few years. Now that we see a lot of co-working spaces, I almost kind of get that same concept, except this just carries over to the living component, because you got a lot of this co-working space. Hey, you can work remotely. Hey, you got digital nomads and that kind of deal. Okay, well, great. This is potentially geared towards that, where it's like, no, we're working professionals. We just enjoy the kind of the communal aspect. Everybody's kind of got their own jobs. We're not in transition, like how you're kind of getting at with some of the kind of halfway home or like a transitional home. It's like, well, no, it's not like that. That's not our community. Our community is, hey, no, everybody's productive and we're kind of doing our thing. We just enjoy having other people around us, right? And like I said, it's almost a take-home version of the co-working space that you might see, because those places are awesome. They're fully fitted out. They got kind of all these, they may have amenities, and it kind of sounds like, no, this is kind of who we're catering towards, a little bit kind of a more professional clientele. You're going to obviously kind of have, you've got the property managers putting eyes on the property, but yeah, I'm going to stop by. What do we need? You have some common spaces. We're going to take care of that. So you're also outfitting and equipping, let's say, the investors along with some management strategies, tips, and whatnot as well. So I think that all of that would lend towards having just a more cohesive house, a better run house. And this is obviously contributing to that low turnover. So that's great. I do appreciate that point of clarification and distinction.
Yeah, something that if anybody who's thinking about, oh, would this work for this house, or could I get into that? Because right now, real estate, as it's always been for over 100 years, is a fantastic time to buy. Is right now. It's different in rates and prices than a lot of us have been used to, and houses are built a lot bigger. The amenities are so much more, right? The number of bathrooms in a house compared to what it was built 50 years ago, just you're getting so much more house, but you're paying a lot more. And to say with me, some people say, hey, well, of course you got that house back in this year because that was the great time to buy. And it's like, well, right now I'm grabbing a house. And by the way, for those who know house hacking, if you do co-living, it's like, we call it beyond house hacking or house hacking 2.0, because somebody who house hacks, they love it. But that first 12 months when they're renting out rooms, that was a tough time of life. And so, but because they didn't have a co-living property management system in place, which I just copied everything the hippies did and I translated into a renter property manager paradigm. But the house I've got a partner in Jacksonville, Florida, to say that this is currently under contract. And with we're going to add, this is a rent ready home. It's great. We are going to add a couple interior doors and walls, but all of that said, our total cash needed is $30,000 to buy it, to inspect it, to appraise it, to do everything, to furnish the common areas. We don't furnish bedrooms, to do all of it. And this thing is going to, let me see, my net profit on it is going to be $3,003.84 a month. And that's right now, like the 30-year fixed loan, conventional, blah, blah, blah. So to say is for those people who are looking at like, hey, do I get into this? What is it like? All of this stuff. I would say you do really want to learn, because co-living property management is different, but you didn't, if you wished you were buying houses 10 years ago, like it's still great. You just need to know what is the current strategy that is the hottest. Airbnb is getting outlawed. Well, legislation is like my home state of Colorado, effective July 1st, they just said any law that impacts co-living, banned. And that's happening like Iowa, California, New York, Washington, Oregon, like it's just boom, 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 boom. So it's exciting when legislation is kind of behind what you're doing.
Yeah. Versus them being headwinds where you're going into that. No, I love that. And yeah, that was going to be another question. It's like, okay, what do you see this working better in specific markets, high cost of living environments? Okay, is that just more, or like we're talking about, okay, co-working spaces, this is where I would imagine, hey, Austin, right? Any of these places that are used to kind of co-working or they're working remotely or whatever, I could see this being a great fit for those markets or just desirable places in general.
It really is. Anywhere that's good to get real estate is good for this. It's actually, so there's some out in like the media in big cities, they show like, oh, we got all these entrepreneurs together, these working professionals. And there are those things out there. They're typically, they're a pretty niched version of co-living. Like they're people who, like you mentioned, digital nomads. They might have a chef or a cleaner that comes in. They might have somebody who organizes social things. To say is, I think that's great. I think that if you're getting into there, you're paying for some expensive real estate in some urban area. I think where the money is, also where the need really is anywhere that's good to get real estate. So it's got a decent MSA score, or I just use now ChatGPT and tell it to give me an MSA score between 0 and 100%, and anything that's better than 75% is like, it's a win. And so, but to say is these renters, a lot of them are people who they might be widowed or divorced. So many people are putting off marriage. There's on occasion, we'll have a student or somebody who's 18. So is it student housing? Well, no, but a student could live there. And so to say, as far as where it goes, just if some place is dying, just don't buy a house there. but every other place, this is the number one rent. The number one in demand lease is the 1-person lease, and co-living speaks to that. And the risk profile is low. You can house hack it. You can team up with people. I didn't have fiddles for money, right? And anyway, it's like I thought about like, okay, how do you get richest the fastest? And this has been my answer with all the different, we learn about financial literacy and all that stuff. I thought, how do you get richest the fastest is you help the most people the fastest with what they most want, at least if you want to do it legally and sustainably. So, right, that's why real estate is so good. People need home. And right now, people need a household. And I find it extremely rewarding, but the people take care of your house. The zoning is going more and more towards it. I do want to say out there though, is really I've had too many people jump into it and they're just stressed out because they're trying to manage it like, say, a normal rental or say an Airbnb. And could you imagine if a long time ago, before people knew what I think Airbnb started in 2012, but nobody had heard about it. And if somebody was trying to manage an Airbnb like they managed a long-term rental, they didn't have a cleaner, they'd be stressed out. The person's calling them at 2 a.m. Anyway, so just to say is it does make sense to learn about this stuff and not mistake it as what's come before. But yeah, I got an excited like rabbit trail. You got to rein me in sometime.
No, that makes total sense. And no, and again, like this is because it's just going to be a new concept for a lot of people, especially anybody who's kind of worked the traditional routes of like real estate investing, just all these different facets that we're talking about. Because Airbnb was the new thing, just like you said, like even not that long ago, right? So, hey, this is kind of a natural progression. Hey, there's always going to be new ways to, new tools to develop, new methods for doing things. And I think this kind of a strategy like this, a concept, it's going to be, for one, it's appealing to an investor, right? Just kind of outside looking in, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this checks a lot of different boxes. But even too, like somebody just getting started, it's almost a necessity, right? And we're seeing that more, right? With people going to school later, starting families later in life, right? This is kind of the general trend. I think it follows a lot of kind of lifestyle choices that a lot of people have been leaving. Well, it's just, hey, we're going to school, we're pursuing higher levels of education. Okay, well, then that means you're having kids later. That means you're getting married later, right? So this is a really solid option and a good option, really, for a larger and larger segment of the population. And just like you mentioned earlier, it's like, okay, yeah, where would this work? Hey, looking at the macro picture, like buy where it's going to make sense to buy long term. Like you're buying in Jacksonville. Okay, great. Like that's a working town for Florida. You're not buying necessarily in Miami where prices have skyrocketed. And not saying it can't work there, but you're going to have a different client base there, like much more transitional and that kind of deal. It's just a different city. But no, I like that. And that's a super interesting concept. I've got a lot more questions, but I want to be respectful of your time. So we may have to have you back on, or we'll point you to your resources that I know that you're going to give to us here for listeners. But what we'll do now is we'll kind of transition into a brief fire round, just a little bit more rapid fire Q&A, if that's something you're up for.
Yeah. And to say is your podcast it's high up there, and it's because you guys take time to find people and really good quality stuff. And anytime you want to have me on, I'm happy to, or if there's specific questions, because this is really so easy. But like I'm teaching my 2.5-year-old about, it's like tying his shoes. Like it's not easy. Like you don't know something until you know it. So, but yeah, just what's happening with real estate, so awesome. And now this trend coming up when the economy's booming, it's like, oh, co-living is so great because you have all these people moving in and blah, blah, blah. And then when the economy is struggling, oh, co-living is so great because people can't afford. So it's this kind of fun thing happening right now. So, but yeah, I'm stoked for the fire round. I've been looking forward to this.
No, yeah. No, I was going to say, just to talk to that real quick. It's almost like whenever we're evaluating, let's say geographic areas, you want to buy in the path of progress. Hey, Amazon or Microsoft or whoever, like any of these big players, Tesla is going to put in a new facility. Great. I want to be in that area because I know, hey, there's going to be a large influx of people coming in. Those people need housing. Those people need services. So you want to be in that path of progress. This is almost like, hey, this is a trend that you need to jump in front of, because this is the path of progress for a lot of people. And this has been, I know I just never thought about it because it's not that kind of solution, but no, I love it. I'm actually pretty excited. Like I said, I've got like 10 more questions that I want to ask you. Well, I'll ask you maybe offline, but we'll fill in the listeners here later, maybe do a second episode. But yeah, fire up. All right. So, first question. What's your favorite book recommendation, the best book recommendation other than Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is always a great recommendation. And you mentioned that already, but do you have one in particular? And it could be on anything. It doesn't have to be real estate related. It could be business, mindset, anything like that.
It's do you want my current one or my most longstanding one?
Either
one. Okay. Well, I get to do both. Okay. So Loopholes in Real Estate by Garrett Sutton. I am a risk, like I say I'm risk adverse AF. Like I do risky things in super safe ways. And he had that book. He's an attorney. He's Robert Kiyosaki's advisor in that regard. But I loved that book. Like Rich Dad, Poor Dad didn't teach me how to invest in real estate. That book's, man. But the one I got my hands on about a year ago is the Jason Drees Do the Impossible. And I like called that dude up. I was like, you need to start coaching me, because this, like, as far as looking at, like, not like I get into a groove, but the groove starts to turn into a rut. And his tools as far as mindset and in his experience with working with real estate investors. That was Brandon Scherner's coach when he was making all his progress. That book is, I think I'm on my fourth time through it. And it's really a short book because awesome things should be simple, but I'm loving that one.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. I hadn't heard that recommendation. I like hearing new books. And so definitely check those things out, guys. All right. Next question. What would you consider your superpower to be?
My superpower is partner acrobatics. I love it. For 8 years, I had an acrobatic yoga studio. It's Partner Acrobatics in Austin. I just love it. I got hooked. And now it's like, Steve, like, have you ever laid down on your back and put a kid up on your feet, kind of like Superman? It's like that, except for like when you have another adult that knows what's going on and do flips and all kinds of stuff. I can show up anywhere. I'm not really funny. I'm not great with social stuff. That's all my wife. But I can put somebody on my feet and they have the time of their life. That's my little goofy social. That's it.
Love it. I love it. That's awesome. That's literally the first time I've ever heard anybody say anything close to that. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, very cool. All right. I'll have to look at it. I was thinking, okay, like it's partner, like, okay, like business partner, thinking JVs, thinking whatever. And he's like, no. Like literal physical acrobatics.
Just to say how cool it is, Steve, is if we were not thousands of miles away, in 5 minutes, you could be doing a handstand on my hands, even if you've never done a handstand. Everything's easier with another person. So just to say it was something, it's another one of those accidental things that happens in life and you just get hooked.
I was going to say, I feel like my back already going out, even just thinking about that. All right. Next question. What advice would you have, let's say for your 20-year-old self? You're just getting started. If somebody's, listening to us and they're in that age range, what advice would you have for them to get going?
Don't wait and buy real estate. Just buy real estate and wait. That little kitschy cliche, it is so right. And yeah, there's no reason to sharpen your tools forever. Just do it. And the mistakes are like half the fun, even if they don't feel like it in the moment. But that would be my best thing. Just get to it and enjoy the good times and even the tough times.
No, love it. Very good. Well, Grant, what's the best way for our audience to reach out to you if they want to know more about this whole co-living strategy? They've got questions. What's the best place for them to go to get in contact with you or learn more about your whole company and your setup?
Yeah, so they can go, I'm all over social media and my website, livingsmithpro.com, but specifically anybody hearing us, I made something special. So livingsmithpro.com/cashflow. So for these listeners is made this. So if I was in your shoes, looking at co-living, whether interested, curious, very interested, or maybe you're doing it right now, each month we do a free 5-day training, a co-living challenge. And it is, I pack everything in there. It's amazing. We really crush it. But the other one in there is my renters have written a book. It's called Welcome Home. It's normally $28. You'd have to buy it. And you go here, you can download it for free. But renters wrote their best pieces of wisdom. And we give this book to new renters when they move in. And so if you're thinking about being a co-living investor, you want to know your market. So, and this book, it's hilarious. They're little one-page readers, and there's things on there, things like, well, what about conflict? But one of the chapters, one of the little daily readers is called Loud Sex, because that's something, right? Like when you live with people, some people move in with their parents and they're like, hey, right? So just to say that, download that book. The other one is if you're just really in the thick of it, you can schedule a 45-minute consult with with me or somebody in the Living Smith teaching team to just see where you're at and what we can help you with. Maybe you're having issues with this co-living or that or this. So those three things, if they go to livingsmithpro.com/cashflow, that's my best thing of like, if I can help people out because you guys, your listeners, you've trained them, Steve. They're the real thing.
Awesome. I really appreciate that, Grant. And thanks for setting that up, guys. So make sure that you're going out and checking out the site. We're going to leave the link in the show notes. So you guys can definitely click on it, make it real nice and easy. But if you can't wait for that, go check it out now. Well, Grant, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Like I said, I'm serious about having you back on because I've got a lot more questions, but we'll definitely check out the resources. And no, it's been a true pleasure. I appreciate you taking your time out of your day and coming on and sharing so much value with our listeners and with me personally. So thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it and I look forward to catching up with you in the future.
Yeah, thanks so much, Steve. The feeling's more than mutual, man. This is great.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Aloha. Great conversation with Grant Shipman over with Livy Smith. What an awesome strategy, this co-living strategy that he has. I think this is really going to solve a lot of problems. That was a great conversation talking about how it's a benefit. Of course, this is appealing to any investor. If you're listening to that, I don't know how you don't walk away thinking, man, all right, I need to do some more homework on this as a potential strategy to add to my portfolio. But also too, we do have a legit housing crisis and there's a lot of people out there that can't afford to buy their own house and live in it solo. But what an amazing springboard to be able to still afford to buy property if you can go into it with multiple other people. He's got the whole system there where they outline, okay, hey, this is how you can manage it. You have books that have been written from the previous renters. I think that is amazing. So definitely go and check him out if you want to learn more. Guys, if you're local and you want to connect with us here, make sure that you're going over to tricityequity.com. You can learn about the different deals that we've done through syndications, multifamily deals. You want to learn more, we'd love to be able to connect with you. If you want to connect with us here locally and you just want to network, come to our group. We have a monthly meetup called Honolulu Multifamily and More. We'd love to shake your hand, put a face to the name, connect with you on a little bit better level, more in person. If you're out traveling and you want to come and stop and visit, it's an amazing way to do that. And guys, we cannot get this show out without recommendations from you. You guys sharing the episode, rating the episode. We'd love 5-star review from you if we've earned it. If you feel like you've gotten some value, love that feedback from all of our listeners. That's going to be it for me today, guys. We'll see you on the next episode. Go out, take some action, and we'll catch you on the next one. Aloha.